This is Turnbull showing his true allegiances. And it's not to Judaism, but it's certainly to Israel, which I think are two separate things. So let's just watch this idiot in full flight.
They were then, having succeeded in the battle against the Arab forces within the mandated territory, they were then invaded by all of the neighbouring Arab countries. So it was 650,000 Jews, the Yishuv, besieged against 40 million, and they prevailed.
What a load of shit. The Eastern European inbreds that invaded the Middle East after World War II under the guise of, being Jews and setting up Israel, they had the backing of the entire Western military when they first set up, and they still have to this day through funding from America. What a load of shit.
And this survival of the Jewish state against these overwhelming odds and its continued growth and prosperity, despite being surrounded by this sea of enemies, most of whom seek its complete destruction, is a phenomenon unmatched anywhere else in the world.
Tell Turnbull what's unmatched. It's the audacity to continue slaughtering a nation of people, being the Palestinians, while demonising them as being the aggressors.
And Israel is a remarkable example for that. I mean, consider this. Mark Twain, when he visited Israel, described well over 100 years ago.
Well, Israel wasn't there 100 years ago, and he fully knows that. This is just trying to rewrite history of that part of the world and make it like Palestine never existed, even though it was there for 2,000 years.
In the 19th century, described Israel as a desolate country whose soil is rich enough but is given over wholly to weeds, a silent, mournful expanse.
Zionism only came about in the late 1800s when they realised there was oil in the Middle East. And they decided that these bankers, the Ashkenazi, they're the inbreds, the psychopaths. They're psychopaths because they are inbreds. And they're psychopaths because they believe that they're better than everybody else. They call themselves more intelligent than all the other races, but that you only get that impression. One trick is to print the money. Once you print the money, you decide which businesses are successful, which people are successful. So you can give the impression that they're more intelligent because they're successful. But it's only that they print the money, and therefore, like, take that Finkel guy that was doing our energy stuff before, while Turnbull was in power, screwing us over and, trying to shut down Tomagay. That guy apparently had businesses over in Silicon Valley. What do you think if he didn't have a last name Finkel, he would have got it? I don't know. These Ashkenazis, they always enable each other. Like that Ben Shapiro and Dave Rubin, they've got millions of dollars behind them for their YouTube channels. So that's where they're really getting their revenue from, not from, probably from YouTube as well. But again, that's owned by Wachowski or some Ashkenazi. So anyway, and this pretending to be Jews, calling themselves Jews, it was only the cover, being able to take the land where the oil was. That's what Zionism was all about, was taking that land. So they claimed that they were Jews, and that they staged the world wars back in World War One, World War Two. They did the great gold heist of the Bolshevik Revolution, where they took all the Tsar's gold and they used all that money to finance the rest of their rubbish. And Libya was also a gold heist as well. There's 400 tons they stole from Libya. It's no longer there. Anyway, back to these Ashkenazis and Israel and what Turnbull's talking about here. They control virtually all of the military, the Western military, NATO, and that these psychopaths control. So, and they took over the Golan Heights because BP, British Petroleum, had found oil there, but secretly, but didn't announce it back in about late 1800s. And now they've discovered that it's there, and now they're stealing it off the Syrians. But they're also going to expand into Syria. The Russians are trying to stop them, but I think ultimately they'll probably succeed because they've been going for a couple of 100 years at this. This Zionism is all about just getting the oil. If the oil was, if the Middle East oil was somewhere in Africa, they'd think of some reason that attached themselves to some religious or historical people there and go, oh, we're setting up a state, and then they just expand and take that land. So that's all Israel is about. So anyway, it's a bit off topic for me, but Turnbull, they're all over the world and they want everyone in debt. I've mentioned many times before. Turnbull's role was to break that cycle of paying off the debt under Liberals, getting the debt under Labor, getting into debt under Labor, getting out of debt, to get into more and more debt. That's why he infiltrated the Liberal side. And this video here, this sort of shows his true allegiances to the bankers. I think he's Ashkenazi. I think you'd have to be some blood connection to him. So he reckons he's not Jewish. Look, none of them really are. True Judaism is Orthodox Judaism. They don't believe in Israel being in existence until the Messiah comes. And so according to Orthodox Jews, Israel shouldn't have been in existence. A lot of them oppose Israel. Now, Israel was just these psychopaths from Eastern Europe, these inbreds, that set it up. So, all right, that's it for this. It's one of Turnbull's greatest hits. Okay.